Most people think being a man in the 1950s was about being tough. It wasn't. It was about being trustworthy. There was a code, never written down anywhere, that every man was quietly measured against, and almost none of it survived to today. Here is the thing nobody explains. A man in 1955 was judged by one question, asked silently by everyone who met him. Can he be counted on? Not how much he made, not how he looked, not how he felt. Whether his word, his time, and his nerve could be relied on when it mattered. Every rule you're about to hear flowed from that one question. They weren't laws. They were a code, carried in how a man stood, spoke, paid, and kept his promises. And because it was never written down, it was never defended, which is exactly how a whole generation of men quietly lost it. 25 of these rules counted down, with the deepest ones saved for the end. Stay to the last. 3, because the rule that ties all the others together does not show up until then. Number 25, the handshake and the straight look in the eye. A man's handshake spoke before he did. Firm grip, dry palm, eyes locked on yours. 2 pumps. Done. A limp hand or a wandering gaze marked you on the spot as a man who couldn't be trusted. It wasn't manners for its own sake. The human brain still reads a direct gaze and a solid grip in a fraction of a second as signals of confidence and honesty, which is why every interview still opens with one. They didn't have the body language studies. They just knew you could size a man up in 3 seconds, and they made those 3 seconds count. Number 24, he could fix it himself. A dripping tap, a dead engine, a busted hinge. A man took a look before he ever called anyone. He kept tools. He knew how to use them. And helplessness around the house was faintly embarrassing. Self-reliance wasn't a hobby. It was part of being grown, and the competence bled into everything. His confidence, his calm, his sense that the world was workable. They didn't outsource their lives. Men today can have anything at the door in an hour and fix almost nothing. And the quiet cost of that is the feeling of being at everyone's mercy. Number 23, he paid his own way in cash. He carried folding money and he settled his share. He did not run a tab he could not clear, did not lean on the other fellow, did not take what he had not earned. Picking up the check was a quiet pleasure. Owing somebody was a weight he shed fast. Paying your own way is independence made physical, and independence was the spine of the whole code. We have built an entire economy on the opposite, on owing, on financing, on the monthly payment that never ends. A man who owes everyone is a man who answers to everyone. Number 22. He was never late. On time meant 5 minutes early. Late was an insult, a way of telling another man his hours were worth less than yours, and a man who was always late got quietly written off. He wore a watch. He planned around the other person, and he treated the appointed hour as a promise. Punctuality is just reliability. You can see, and reliability was the whole currency of a man's name. They had no phone pinging reminders. They had something stronger, the understanding that being late was a small theft and a man did not steal. Number 21. He stood up and he held the door. When a woman entered the room, he stood. When she reached a door, he got there first. It was automatic, drilled in by his father, done without thinking and without expecting thanks. Strip away the dated trappings, and the core is simple. He was trained to notice other people and put them a step ahead of himself, constantly in small ways. That habit of small deference is the soil reel. Respect grows in. Men today were never taught the reflex, and you can feel its absence the moment you walk into a room. Number 20. He took his hat off indoors. Every man wore a hat, a fedora, a flat cap, a Stetson out west, and every man knew the rules cold. Off the second you stepped inside. Off in the elevator with a lady. Off for the flag and the funeral. Tipped to a neighbor on the street. The hat was a whole language of respect worn on your head, telling everyone you knew where you were and who you were among. We dropped the hat and dropped the language with it. And now most men move through public space as if the rules were never there. Number 19. He dressed like it mattered. He put on a coat and tie to board an airplane, to take in a ball game, to travel anywhere people would see him. Not out of vanity, the opposite. Dressing well was a courtesy to everyone who had to look at you, and a sign you took the occasion, and yourself, seriously. How a man turned himself out told the world how much care he brought to everything else. We traded it for pajama pants at the airport, and somewhere in that trade we lost the idea that how you present yourself is a statement of your standards. Number 18. He wrote it by hand. A favor done, a dinner hosted, a kindness shown, and a note went out, written by hand, signed and mailed. It cost 3 cents and 10 minutes, and it told the other person they mattered enough to stop for. The handwritten word carried weight precisely because it took effort. And effort is what makes gratitude real. We swapped it for a thumbs up and a one-word text, frictionless and forgettable. A man who still writes the note stands out now, exactly the way he blended in then, as someone who actually pays attention. Number 17. He kept his domain. The lawn cut, the hedges square, the car washed on Saturday, the paint kept up, the gutters clear. A man's house and yard were a public statement of the order he kept inside himself, and letting them slide was letting himself slide. It wasn't about impressing the street. The discipline of tending your own small patch of the world week after week is the same discipline that runs a life. They understood that how you keep your things is how you keep yourself, and the man who couldn't be bothered with either was the same man both times. Number 16. He held his liquor. He drank often, but the man who couldn't hold it, who got loud, sloppy, or mean, lost standing fast. The expectation was control, enjoy yourself, walk home straight, and keep your mouth shut about anything you shouldn't have said. Drinking was social, but losing command of yourself in public was a real disgrace. The rule underneath had nothing to do with alcohol. It was that a man stays in command of himself no matter what's in his hand. We turned losing control into a punchline. They treated keeping it as the entire point. Number 15. He never aired the marriage in public. Whatever went wrong behind his own front door stayed there. He didn't run his wife down to the men at the lodge, didn't make her the joke, didn't turn his private troubles into everyone's business. Loyalty meant guarding the marriage's privacy even when it was hard, and a man who badmouthed his wife marked himself as weak, not honest. Discretion was a form of respect. We now broadcast every grievance to thousands of strangers and call it being real. They knew the difference between honesty and simply leaking. Number 14. He didn't talk about what he earned. A man's salary was nobody's business, not the neighbors', sometimes not even fully the family's. He didn't brag about a raise or measure himself out loud against the next fellow's new car. Money was private, and flashing it was the mark of a man who needed you to know, which was its own kind of weakness. The quiet man with the paid-off house had nothing to prove. We've turned income and price tags into a public scoreboard, and the endless comparison is making everyone miserable. He simply opted out of a game we can't stop playing. Number 13. He kept his word to his kids. If he said he would be at the game, he was at the game. If he promised to teach you to drive on Sunday, Sunday came, and so did he. He understood, without anyone spelling it out, that a child learns what a promise is worth by watching whether his father's word held. Every kept word built a trust no gift could buy, and every broken one taught a lesson he did not want taught. They never read a parenting book. They knew that to a kid, your reliability is your love, written in the only language he actually understands. Number 12. He respected his elders. He called older men sir and older women ma'am, gave up his seat and listened when a grandfather spoke, assuming a man who had lived longer had earned something worth hearing. Age commanded a baseline of deference that did not have to be re-won every time. It was not blind worship. It was a culture that banked its wisdom in its old people and kept the young close enough to draw on it. We have cut that line, and now each generation starts from scratch, while the elders sit alone with everything they know. Number 11. He fought fair and never picked on the weak. A man could fight, and sometimes did, but the rules were carved in deeper than any law. Never hit a smaller man without cause. Never strike a woman. Never kick a man who's down. Never reach for a weapon in a fair disagreement. Strength existed to protect, and turning it on someone weaker than you was the fastest way to stop being a man in everyone's eyes. The code put a fence around force. They needed no policy on it. Every boy learned, usually the hard way, that real strength is the strength you hold back. Number 10. He paid his debts fast. borrow $20 and it came back the moment he had it, often sooner than promised, because a debt left hanging gnawed at him. Owing a friend was a small shame you cleared as fast as humanly possible, since your name was attached to it. Prompt repayment was how a man proved his word was good in the one place it is easiest to prove, with money. They treated a debt as a live thing that aged badly. We have normalized owing for decades, to strangers, comfortably. And a man who owes comfortably has lost something his grandfather guarded. Number 9, he mentored the younger man. The older hand at the plant, the foreman, the uncle, the man down the street, took the green kid aside and taught him the trade, the ropes, and how to carry himself. It was understood that a man who knew something owed it forward, and that raising up the next man was part of being one. Knowledge moved man to man, by hand, on purpose. They did not have a tutorial for everything. They had each other, and the passing down kept a community strong. We each have a screen now, and somehow, every young man feels more alone for it. Number 8. He served something bigger than himself. He had worn the uniform, or he ran the scout troop, manned the volunteer fire brigade, showed up for the church, the lodge, the union hall. A man was expected to belong to something beyond his own four walls and give it his time unpaid. Duty was not a burden. It was where a man found his place and his usefulness. Belonging to something larger is still one of the strongest predictors of a man's well-being there is. They knew it in their bones. We have drifted into small private lives, and the loneliness in men today is that bill coming due. Number 7, he defended his family without hesitation. If a threat came to his door, his wife, his children, his home, there was no calculation, no glancing around for who else might handle it. Standing between his family and danger was the most basic thing a man was for, and he'd have been ashamed to need to be asked. Protection was instinct, sharpened by expectation. It didn't make him violent. It made him a wall. The people he loved could stand behind. The role has been muddied and half-mocked since, but the need never went anywhere, and a family still sleeps easier behind a man who'd stand. Number 6, he kept his temper. He felt anger like any man, but flying off the handle, shouting, throwing things, losing the room, was the mark of someone who could not govern himself. A man held it, spoke level, and on the rare occasion he did raise his voice, it landed precisely because it almost never happened. Self-command under provocation was respected above nearly anything. They understood what modern psychology now confirms, that the man who controls his reaction holds the power in the room, and the one who erupts hands it away. We have started calling the eruption authenticity. They called it a boy in a man's body. Number 5, he endured without complaint. Hard work, a bad back, a lean year, a cold walk to the plant. He carried it without turning it into a performance. Not because he felt nothing, but because he didn't believe his burdens were everyone else's to hold. There's real strength in shouldering what's yours quietly, and the people around him drew steadiness from it. one caution. The era took this too far. A man should still let the people closest to him in and ask for help when he truly needs it. The part worth keeping is the dignity, the refusal to whine, not the refusal to feel. Number 4, he provided, and the family came first. His paycheck wasn't his, it was the household's, and his own wants came dead last, after the rent, the food, the kids' shoes, his wife's peace of mind. He took pride in being the one others could lean on, and he measured himself by whether they were cared for, not by what he kept for himself. Providing was identity, not chore. That orientation, putting the people you're responsible for ahead of your own comfort, is the oldest definition of a man there is. We've grown suspicious of it, and plenty of homes feel the empty space where that steady provider used to stand. Number 3, he owned his mistakes. When he was wrong, he said so, plainly, and didn't reach for an excuse, blame, or a story that made it someone else's fault. The buck stopped with him, and taking the hit for your own error was simply what a man did. Accountability was the price of being taken seriously. Nothing builds trust faster than a man who says that was on me and means it. And nothing erodes it faster than one who never can. They owned it. We've gotten fluent in explanations, and an explanation is just a more sophisticated way of never saying sorry. Number 2, he let his actions do the talking. He didn't announce his plans, broadcast his good deeds, or campaign for credit. He did the work, kept his head down, and let the results speak. And a man who bragged was suspected of having less than he claimed. Quiet competence was the highest style there was. The substance was supposed to be visible without narration. We live now inside a machine built to make every man perform his life for an audience. The performing has quietly replaced the doing. He'd have found it baffling. A man telling everyone what he was about to do instead of just going and being it. Number 1, his word was his bond. Here it is, the rule underneath all the others. When a man in the 1950s said he would do a thing, it was as good as done. No contract, no reminder, no out. A deal closed on a handshake held, because breaking your word did not cost you a lawsuit. It cost you your name. And a man's name was the only thing he truly owned. Everything else on this list, the punctuality, the debts paid, the promises to his kids, the accountability, was just his word being good in one more place. That was the entire code. A man was exactly as good as his word, and his word was iron. Today, a signature on a 40-page contract holds less than that handshake once did, and every man can feel the difference. Look back over all 25, and you'll see they were never really about hats or handshakes or lawns. They were one idea wearing 25 faces. A man was something you could count on. His word, his time, his temper, his family, his debts, all of it pointed at the same question everyone quietly asked of him. Can he be trusted? The rules were how a man answered yes every day without ever saying it out loud. None of it was written down, which is exactly why it slipped away. A code carried only in conduct survives only as long as it is passed on, and somewhere along the line we stopped passing it. The good news is that nothing on this list takes money, talent, or permission. It takes a decision. These aren't old-fashioned rules. They're the right ones. We didn't outgrow them. We just stopped teaching them. So here's what I want you to do. Pick one of these and live it this week. If you want the easiest place to start, be the man who's never late. Treat every appointed time as a promise and watch how people begin to look at you. If you want to go deeper, own your next mistake out loud. No excuse, just, that was on me. And if you want the one that changes everything, make your word iron for 7 straight days. Say only what you'll do, then do exactly what you said. Then come down to the comments and tell me which rule you picked and what it did. I want to know which of these still has teeth in a world that forgot them. And if you got any value out of this, real value, do one more thing. Subscribe. That is what this channel is for. Masculine Manual is bringing masculinity back, one forgotten rule at a time. With the codes and the standards most men were never handed. There is a lot more of it coming, and you do not want to miss it.